Okay, sit yourself on your lift and then come into cross-legged position. Just adjust until your seat bones feel even. So have a little wriggle about just so that you find levelness at the hips. And then lift and open the chest. Draw your shoulders down away from your ears. So spend a little time just observing the breath, just listening to the breath. Listening to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Just observe your level of energy. Soften the jaw and the tongue and the throat. Fill the lungs from the bottom to the top and empty the lungs from the top to the bottom. And then bring your hands into Namaste. Press the palms firmly together. Lengthen from the armpits into the elbows. From the elbows into the heels of the hands. From the heels of the hands up into the fingertips. And then with an exhalation, allow your eyes to gently close. Maintaining your focus on the movement, the sound, and the completion and evenness of the breath. And then very gently release the chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone. And then hold on to that feeling of abundance in the heart area. Expressing gratitude as you release the backs of the hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And then raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open. And then hold onto your knees, lift and open the chest, drawing your shoulders down away from the ears. Take a long, deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across, your ribs across, your shoulders across. Just listening to the sound of the breath. Using the out breath to intensify the turn. come back to the center. Just hold onto your knees. Lift up into the chest. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then with an exhalation, turn to the right side, so to the left side, sorry. Turning from the abdomen, drawing the abdomen from the right to the left. Drawing the ribs across, the shoulders across. Just keeping the neck soft and passive, just looking forwards rather than looking over the shoulder. Maintaining the connection with the breath, using the out breath to intensify the turn. And then come back to the center. Just come off your lift and then sit yourself back down into Adho Mukha, or the starting point of Adho Mukha Virabhadrasana. So sit back on your heels. Just let your legs just observe the sensation of sitting back on your heels. Sometimes it's more comfortable than others. Just observe whether your legs are resistant this morning or whether they're quite willing to allow the seat bones to stay down on the heels. Sit on a blanket, a folded blanket, or a block if you know that there's going to be kind of resistance. Just lift and open the chest, driving the spine upwards. Feel that you can broaden the collarbone, lifting the chest up to the ceiling, up to the sky. And then raise your arms up. Have your arms wide. Broaden those arms, keeping the arms wide, and then scoop the chest up to the skies. Tuck the tailbone in slightly so that you don't over bend in the lumbar. Bring the hands onto your hips and then come forwards, hinging at the hips, and then press the palms into the floor, spreading the fingers, spreading the palms. Just spending some time just going through the motions of each stage of the pose. When I say going through the motions, I don't mean doing it without thought. I mean doing it with thought, but going through each stage of the pose. So not just immediately slinging yourself into the final pose. Keep the chest lifted, keep the seat bones down, keep the hands really broad, keep the outer elbows hitting in as you stretch the chest forwards, trying to maintain contact between the seat bones and the heels if you can, and then finally bring the forehead down onto the floor. But this isn't the end of the pose. This is just the start of the pose, because the pose now becomes this extension of the seat bones down to the heels, the sacrum spine down towards the heels, from the hips into the armpits, into the elbows, the wrists, the palms, and the fingers, fingertips, the fingernails. So bit by bit, feel that you can wake the body up, trying to keep the seat bones down on the heels. If you can't, then just walk your hands just a little bit closer to your head, and then reactivate your arms so that you can make contact. Just breathe in evenly and deeply, extending deeply. Come up onto your knees, have your hands as wide apart as the mat. Bring your feet as wide apart as the mat. Turn your toes under, and then with the knees bent initially, bring yourself up into Adho Mukha Svanasana. So feel how the feet, the toes make contact with the floor. Feel how the neck of the big toe connects to the ground, and then lengthen out into the little toe side, spreading the toe mounds. Lengthen from the toes into the heels to activate the shins. Lift from the heels up into the shin bone. Lift the shin bone out of the ankle socket, up into the kneecap. Lift the kneecap up away from the shin bone towards the thigh. And then the thigh bone and the muscle away from the kneecap up into the hip socket. Tilt the seat bones up towards the ceiling. Turn the fronts of the thighs inward so that the backs of the thighs broaden outwards and you get more space in the hips. Lift the seat bones so that the shoulder blades draw into the front chest. From the hips, lift into the armpits, from the armpits into the elbows, into the wrists, into the palms of the hands. Just observe, is your effort even between the legs and the arms, between the left and the right? Is there a more willing side of the body? Can you get the less willing side to follow suit? Okay, step your feet forwards, come up into a standing position, and then have some blocks for your hands for half uttanasana. So this is our limbering in sequence. These poses help to kind of prepare the body for the later poses, but they also help to prepare the mind for the practice, because the head is low, and when the head is kind of lower than the legs, then, or lower than the hips, then we get a quieter brain. So turn your toes inwards. Stamp the big toe into the floor, stretch the little toes out to the side, tighten the kneecaps, lift up into the chest. Broaden the arms, have the arms wide. So lift the arms up to the ceiling, but keep them wide so that you can really lift and open the chest. And then just gently bring those arms in so that they're parallel. And then hinge at the hips. Come forwards, hinging at the hips, keeping the legs really firm. Have the hands underneath your shoulders. And then just reactivate and readdress the observation of the legs. So we work through this sequence of observation and alertness and activation. So we learn to see the body through the feeling of the body. So observe how the body responds. Bring alertness to the physical body. Lift the seat bones. Turn the fronts of the thighs in, the backs of the thighs out, so you can lift the seat bones further, projecting the chin and the chest forwards, keeping the legs really firm. If you can go down a little lower, then do, or you can just use a tabletop or the back of a chair if you are protecting your back, but keep the legs really firmly engaged. If you can reach down to the floor, then do that. But each time you change your position, so Becky, maybe walk your feet in slightly. So if you're using a lift, just walk your feet in so your legs aren't slanting forwards. You can slant the legs back, if anything, and then project the chin and the chest forwards in the good way that you were doing. So don't be too far away with your legs. So you don't want your legs to slope forwards, because that becomes really difficult to everyone. Well, just try it. So let your legs lean forward so that the toes come in, the weight comes into the toes. And then you can lift the fronts of the legs pretty well. But then hit the legs back so that your weight goes into your heels. And then you can really lift the backs of the legs, and it's where the backs of the legs where the seat bones are, and then you get that really good projection of chin and chest. Just breathing evenly, deeply, just working with what your body is capable of this morning. Just be aware of the response of the physical body at this moment now. And then just gently bring your hands into hips, come up into a standing position, bending your knees on the way up if you need to. And then just come up into Tadasana, inner edge of the feet together. Just have the big toes touching, your heels touching, and then lift up into the chest. Just breathe evenly and deeply, listening to the sound of the breath. Soften the jaw and in the tongue, spread in the fingers, spread in the palm, lift in the chest. Bring your arms out nice and wide in toward your chest, and then step or jump your feet apart. Turn your left toes in, your right leg and foot all the way out, and then turn the chest to face the front. Lift up into the chest and then come over into trikonasana. So once you're here, just be in the pose and just observe what happens with the legs. So can you straighten that front leg, Becky? Tighten the kneecap a little. Often we go down too low, so it's good to come up a little higher. So then you can lift up into the chest. You can turn the chest up to face the ceiling. So don't be over ambitious with where the hand goes. In light on yoga, Mr. Iyengar's hand is right on the floor, but you know that isn't right for all of us. So just feel where you can get those legs straight. The straightening of the legs, especially if that front leg, is the priority. Just feel the stretch of the hamstrings, and then come back to the center, and then swap the feet around. Turn the right toes in, the left leg and foot all the way out, bringing the chest back to face the front, and then extend over. Look up to the top arm. Now go back to the feet, even if you can't see them, and observe, are you placing your weight evenly between the 2 feet? Is all of the weight landed onto this front leg, or can you activate that back leg really firmly so that you can activate the back leg to help to extend into the spine? Okay, come back to the center, bring the feet parallel, and then step or jump your feet back together. So we're going to use the wall for the back leg. It's the technique we come back to kind of time and time again because it's a useful one. So just bring your mat, the short end of the mat, into a wall, so you've got somewhere to kind of kick your foot into. I've only got this post here, but that'll be enough because I can just push my heel into that post there, and then just stretch the mat out. So you use the wall. Now if your wall isn't kind of firm enough, or if it's not broad enough, then you can always put a block there, and then it will kind of stay. So you can put a block on the edge of the wall, and then that just gives you kind of a more kind of certain firmness with the wall. So have the left foot in contact with that wall, and then step the feet apart. So traditionally, or classically, we turn the left toes in slightly. You can keep it flat against the wall, or you can turn it in slightly, but we've got to really keep the heel pressing really firmly against that block, and then turn the right leg and foot all the way out. So go nice and wide with the legs, and then turn this right leg and foot all the way out, turning the thigh from the inside to the outside, and then bringing the chest up to face the front. Now at this stage, probably doesn't feel like a lot is happening with this back leg, but it's when we come over. So keep your left hand attached to the hip and then come over, just come over a little bit. And then you start to feel, okay, well, that heel can really kick firmly into that wall. So keep pushing that heel into the wall, lengthening up into the spine, and then reach down. See if you can find the shin. So again, keeping that front leg straight if you can. Push that back leg really firmly into the wall, and then lengthen into the spine and turn. Keep that back kneecap really firm. Turning the chest, turning the top shoulder towards the back of the room, and then reaching up. I run out of ceiling height here, but keep pushing that heel, that back heel really hard into the wall, like you want to kick it through the wall. And then as you come up, kick that back foot firmly into the wall as you come back up, and then turn the front foot all the way in, and then just step or jump feet together, come back into Tadasana. Just observe how the left side of the body feels maybe more energized. So we're going to have to turn around, unless you've got another wall so you can still face the front. We're going to have to turn around with our back to the camera. So just listen to the words. So step the feet apart, just have that right foot really firmly into the block. You can either keep it just flat into the block or turn the right toes in very slightly, but just keeping that heel really firmly pressing into the block. Turn the left leg and foot all the way out. So bend the knee as you turn it, as you turn that leg, and then turn the inner thigh around from the big toe side to the little toe side of that left leg as you straighten the leg. And then once the leg is straight, see if you can find that evenness. So the hips will feel unlevel. The front leg hip will feel lower than the back leg hip. So kick that back foot really firmly into the floor, and then suck that right hip in a little. Keep the right hand on the hip, stretch out with the left hand. And then as you start to come over, that's where you start to feel how effective that block in the hip, in the heel is. So keep that back leg really firm. Turn the chest and the shoulder back to face the wall behind you, and then reach up. Keep really firmly kicking into that block that's connected to the wall. So the more you work that back leg, the more you can extend into the spine. The more you can extend into the spine, the more energy the pose will bring. And then come back to the center, bring the feet parallel, and then step or jump the feet back together, and then just come to face the ceiling, to face the front, back into Tadasana. Just breathe in evenly. So Trikonasana is a really good kind of base to kind of start this kind of activation of the back leg. Have the left heel against the wall, and then step, go really wide, go a bit wider than last time. For Virabhadrasana 2, so the kind of bent leg pose. So push that heel really firmly into the floor. Turn the toes in very slightly, and then rotate the right foot all the way out. So if you bend your knee, it helps you to kind of swoop this front of the thigh from the inside to the outside more efficiently. So at this stage, turning that leg tends to make this hip drop. So push that heel into the floor and then suck this kind of outer thigh and the outer hip in. Suck that outer hip in, lift and open the chest, bringing the chest to face the front. Stretch your arms out, and then we're going to start to bend the knee. But as we bend the knee, I want you to really firmly kick into that outer heel, pushing the foot really hard into the wall. So don't lose that contact. So because when we do Virabhadrasana 2, wants to do that foot wants to leave the wall. So keep that foot really firmly pressed into the wall. Look over the middle finger of the right hand, find that right angle, bend that knee, keep pushing really firmly into that outer heel of the back leg. Okay, come back to the center, bring the feet parallel and then step or jump the feet back together. So it starts to warm you up a little bit, doesn't it? And then we'll just do the other side. So obviously I can't see what you're doing on this way, but you can just hear the words. Just have that right heel right up against the block. Turn the left leg and foot all the way out again. Just turning, sweeping that front of the thigh from the inside to the outside. Bring the chest to face the front. Keeping this back leg really firm, tightened at the kneecap. Can you kick that foot? It's almost not just the heel, it's like the outer cuboid bone, just the little kind of metatarsals on the back of the foot, on the outside edge of the foot. Keep that pressing into the block as you bend and descend. Keep that back leg really firmly pushing into the block as you come over, bending the knee. So the more you push into that back leg, the more you obtain a more clear evenness of the legs. Breathe evenly, softly and deeply. Okay, straighten the leg, front leg come back, bring the feet parallel and then step or jump the feet back together, come back to face the screen and then just be back in Tadasana. So just feel how the legs have a little evenness in sensation. Have the feet hip width apart, turn your toes in, raise your arms up. If you're protecting your back, just come into half uttanasana, just bring your hands onto the top of a desk or a table or the back of a chair. Otherwise, hook the thumbs into the crease of the elbows, wrap your fingers around your elbows, and then just come forward and hang down. So just working with how your body feels today. And it's important to observe how your body feels right now, because yoga brings us into the present. Because the yoga that we're doing now, and so that the sensations that you're feeling are the sensations of the body right now. There might be some of the past in the body, so we've got to respect that. But we feel where the body is in 3 dimensions, or maybe in 4 dimensions. So the 3 dimensions of like kind of spatial conceptuality, but then the 4th dimension of time. Yoga brings us into depth, height, width, and time. Brings us into that space in time that is uniquely now. And if we can continue to focus on the sensations that we're feeling now, then worries about the past or the future can dissolve. And all we have is what we are right now. And what we are right now is something that we can mold and change and just be with. So sometimes we want to change ourselves all the time. Actually, we never sit and just observe the moment, this moment in time. And this moment in time is invariably fine and okay. Okay, release your hands to the floor if you have your hands down, and then come back up into the standing position. And then just come down onto your back for supta baddha. Just come down onto the floor, soles of the feet together, knees nice and wide. Push the heels firmly together. If there's resistance and stiffness in your hips, then just bring some blocks underneath the thighs. But we shouldn't be afraid of resistance, because resistance is what makes us feel the pose. We don't want pain, however. If there are the signs of bad pain, so burning, twisting, stabbing pains, those we should avoid. So we need to accommodate the body so that those pains are avoided. But if the pain is resistance, and if it's just the feeling of an intense extension, and that is good pain, that is what we want to find within the pose. So just observe how the physical body feels now. So sometimes we go into a pose with this sense of kind of dread about the pose. It's the pose that really kind of stretches a particular part of the body, and maybe it's hard. And so we develop this kind of veil of dislike about that particular pose. And so as soon as we go into that pose, all we can think is, this is horrible. But if you can kind of move beyond that, and if you can move beyond that initial learned sensation and kind of move deeper into the physical sensation of the pose, then maybe you realize, well, if I work my legs in this way, if I extend my spine in this way, if I extend my arms in this way, if I extend into the neck, into the head, then actually that pose feels good right now. So we can only ever be in the pose right now. But we often bring bad vibes into the pose from previous experience. So just observe this pose now. You might love this pose, or maybe you don't. It doesn't really matter what your initial reaction, emotional reaction is, because there's a physical sensation that we can learn to observe. And after all, yoga, true yoga practice, isn't just throwing ourselves into sequences of poses and then saying, right, there you go, done my yoga practice. It's just coming onto the mat and experiencing the pose today, experiencing what the pose feels like today. Because you can almost guarantee that the pose is never going to feel the same every time. Sometimes you'll notice resistance. Sometimes you'll notice resistance in different places where they weren't before. Don't judge yourself over those differences. Just observe that there are differences. And then your yoga practice becomes less judgmental and more observational, more alert to the present moment. Stretch your arms up towards the ceiling, interlock your fingers, and then turn the palms all the way up towards the ceiling. And then lengthen your arms along the floor. Have a folded blanket or some blocks underneath your hands if there's stiffness in your shoulders. But just feel the pose that you're experiencing now. So you might just think, well, this pose isn't really doing anything. But then are you observing how the feet become connected? Are you consciously pressing the feet together? Are you lengthening consciously from the inner groin and the inner heel into the inner knee? Rotating the inner knee around towards the outer knee, and the outer knee in towards the outer hip and the outer heel. Are you broadening the abdomen so that the abdominal walls come down onto the floor, reducing the curvature of the lumbar? Are your shoulder blades connected on the outside edge of the shoulder blade? Are your arms extending evenly? Do the armpits feel as though they're opening? Breathe evenly and deeply, listening to the sound of the breath. Are you filling the body with the pose, or are you just waiting for the next pose? Just release your arms, rest your hands on your lower ribs, and then gently draw your knees together. We've been in supta baddha for a little while, so bring the knees together, the feet apart, just kind of reversing the opening action of the hips. Just breathing into the floor. And then draw your knees in towards your chest, and then just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then rock yourself up into a seated position, and then just come into cross legs. Good. Just give me a little indication of how you're feeling. Thumbs up, sideways, down. Good, good. Okay, good. Just come into cross legs, hold onto your knees and lift and open the chest, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Just close your eyes for a few moments and just focus on drawing the breath in through the nose, filling the bottom of the lungs all the way up to the top of the lungs. Emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. Just working with that cycle of filling the lungs from the bottom to the top. And emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. If there is no problem with heart conditions or high blood pressure, then at the top of the in-breath, just gently retain the breath. Just pause the breath when the lungs are full, just for a moment, just a second or two. And then release with the out-breath. It just helps you to absorb more of the oxygen that you inhale. With an out breath, draw your chin down to meet your chest. Lift the chest up to meet your chin, Jalandhara Bandha. Just continue to feel the lungs from the bottom to the top, pausing at the top. Just allowing the energy of the breath to overflow into the arms, into the torso, into the legs. Incorporate Mula Bandha by raising the anal sphincter up towards the diaphragm region. So that pause at the top of the in-breath should be brief. Just a second or two, don't overwork it. And then just bring the breath back to a normal rhythm. Release Mula Bandha, release Jalandhara Bandha. And then lift and open the chest. We're going to come forwards in cross legs. So if you've got a bad back, then maybe you might want to just stay at this stage. Or perhaps so we're going to go all the way. Let me show you. So we're going to come lifting the front chest, and then bring a couple of fists, create a couple of fists, one on top of the other, and then just rest your head on the top of the fist. If you can't reach the floor, then don't strain to get there, but use blocks to come forwards, and then just rest your head down. So just use whatever you need. Just lift the chest on the way down, keeping the front chest lifted, and then create a couple of fists for your hands, and then rest your hands on your head. Rest your head on your hands. So it's creating a little pressure between the fist and the forehead. And that helps to quieten the front brain. So breathe evenly. Just listen to the breath. Just observe how your energy feels different. Just breathe evenly, filling the lungs from the bottom to the top, but no longer retaining the breath, just breathe in naturally. You can swap the fists around so that you use the other fist on top of the forehead. Press the forehead into the head, press the head into the forehead, so you're not quite sure which it is. And then lift your head. Just come back to the center and just observe that quietness that comes over the brain from coming out of a forward bend. Hold onto your knees, lift, and open the chest, and then turn to the right. Drawing the abdomen across the ribs, across the shoulders, across. And then come back to the center. Swap the crossing of your legs, so you do the kind of unnatural crossing of the legs. So if you're doing half padmasana, do it the other way around, or just normal swastikasana, just cross them the other way around, lift, and open the chest. Just observe immediately the kind of refreshment of the energy as you've just done that subtle thing of changing the legs, but there's something new to observe inside. And then turn to the left. So each time we come into the poses and we observe the sensations of the pose, it reminds us that today is a new day, that today feels different, and it's important that each day feels different, because otherwise we're just on a hamster wheel. So just give yourself that opportunity to feel how the body is feeling right now. And sometimes it takes poses that we're deeply familiar with. We've not done anything today that we haven't done hundreds of times before. But just observing how the body feels when you're in the pose today. Not how the body felt last time. Maybe it was easier last time, maybe it was harder last time. Just observing it without judgment, just observing it, taking note, learning something new each time. Come back to the center, and then just stretch out your legs, and then we'll just finish in shavasana. So just put something on warmer if you think you're going to be cold. Just lay yourself in a really good straight line right down the center of the mat. Have the blanket right underneath your head. Take your glasses off if you're wearing them. Just hold onto the sides of the mat by the hips, and then initially just bend your knees, stretch the legs up to the ceiling, just keeping the sacrum spine down on the floor. So viparita, karanhi, just a gentle, brief inversion. Just feeling that the sacrum is in good contact with the floor. It's almost a massage for the sacrum. Breathing evenly and deeply. Okay, and then just bend your knees, bring your feet back down onto the floor. Just come up onto your elbows. Make sure you're in a really good straight line right down the center of the mat. And then just allow yourself to release into the floor. Just consciously unhooking the muscles of the arms and the legs. Allowing the physical body to become heavy. Allowing the physical body to feel heavy on the ground. So that you observe the lightness that rises to the uppermost skin. Just basking in that feeling of energetic lightness rising to the top of the skin, using the in-breath and the out-breath to distribute that feeling evenly throughout the limbs and the top of the head. And then when you're ready to disturb yourself, just wriggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, just bring yourself back into this pose of Shavasana, and then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then gently roll over onto your right side. Stretch out your top leg, come back up into a seated position, just a final cross legs with your hands in Namaste, just a final spinal lift. Just draw your breath in through your nose down into the abdomen. Be conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions, the forward bends, the twists, the reclining poses bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to acknowledge the positive energy you've created inside, and then send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then when you're ready, just release the backs of the hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards. And as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you feel as though you have kind of lifted your energy a little. Maybe your energy feels different now than it did at the beginning. So hopefully you've got some good energy to put into your day. So thank you very much for joining me.